Okay.
That's all I know. That's where we are.
We didn't share notes.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to first say at the onset is how important it is, how crucial it is to make sure that we avoid arrogance. Now, why is it so particularly crucial to avoid arrogance versus any other negative character trait? Negative character traits are bad. They're bad, and that's what we're here for, to fix. Why is one worse than the other? Or why is one, particularly arrogance, what we're going to talk about tonight, why is that so much more important for us specifically versus the rest of the other negative characteristics? You think about this, being envious or being quick to anger or being impatient. Those are all negative characteristics, as is arrogance. How come arrogance is so important? So I think that there's really a few answers. And as we know, I'm pretty sure my brother must have mentioned last week that arrogance is what's called a gateway. It's a gateway characteristic. How so? Just like marijuana is a gateway drug, this is also a gateway characteristic that it could bring you to a lot of other things. Mm-hmm. Arrogance at its core is arrogance, but it can be manifested in many different areas. For example, if I think I'm better than someone else, if I'm arrogant, and someone else cuts me off or someone else doesn't give me the proper respect, well, what happens? I get angry. So people only get angry because of arrogance.
Is that right?
Yes.
That's arrogance?
Yeah.
When you get cut off?
When someone gets angry at someone else, that's a manifestation of arrogance. Yes. Hence, the arrogance is really like it's like a gateway drug. It itself is bad, but it's also it's a gift that keeps on giving, so to speak, in a negative sense. Because it keeps on causing someone to act in a way that's not the most refined and not what we want.
And the other traits are not as giving?
Most of them are not. We have a statement from one of the Rabbeinu Wolbe, one of the great Musar and really Jewish leaders of the 13th century. He says this boldly. He says it just straight up. He says that arrogance is the reason for all sin. Not just characteristic. Everything. That's what he says. His arrogance is at the root. If you dig deep behind everything, but behind every activity, every negative activity, you'll find that at its root there's some sort of arrogance which is the impetus behind the negative activity. So it on its own is very serious. It's very serious and it's very important. But I think specifically for us, when you have a Musar class and you're constantly tackling areas of your character, and every 2 weeks you have a new area, a new character trait, and you'll work on it, you learn about it, you learn exercises about it, and you start working on it. And before you know it, your laziness, what happens to someone who works on their laziness, who improves their laziness? What happens to them? They become less lazy. Right? So a lazy person who used to be lazy, but is lazy no longer, now runs the risk of becoming arrogant. So in effect, what we're doing tonight and every other night of the Musar class is what we're really doing is becoming more arrogant. Invariably, when someone becomes better, improves in his character, invariably they're going to become arrogant. Hence, it's like a trade-off. It's like we're improving our patience, but we're becoming more arrogant. We're working on our anger, but we're becoming more arrogant. Because when I am attuned to patience, let's say. So I'm saying, okay, I'm going to be more patient, I'm going to be patient, I'm going to be more giving, right? And then you see someone who's a little bit not as patient. What do you say? Look at this guy, or girl. How are they acting? What do you mean? They don't know about Musar? Well, you 2 weeks ago didn't know about Musar either, right? But now you learned about Musar, and suddenly you're judging everyone. And you're putting into focus your quality versus them. So in effect, the danger of Musar, my brother would never tell you this. He would never tell you this because he wants you guys to come back. But the danger of Musar is always going to be that you improve in one area, but there's a great likelihood that you'll regress in a different area, namely arrogance.
Never heard that before,
This is
but
a
it makes
whole new
sense. I can
angle.
see how that could be.
This is a whole new
Yeah,
angle now.
but you can see what he's talking about. Yeah.
So that's why, I think it's natural. I think we've all experienced that. If someone has really dedicated some time, some headspace, some effort into tackling one of their characteristics, they automatically are on the lookout for someone who is maybe failing in that area, and they immediately start judging them.
Yeah, that's right.
So what is that? That's an activity of arrogance. So, and we could safely argue that if you improve one area, but you regress in another area, who says it's worth the trade-off? So, ironically, so let's get out of here. Let's go. No. But that the point is that that's why what we're talking about today is very important, especially for us. Now, I think arrogance is also somewhat of a tricky character trait. There's so much to say about it. It's a gateway characteristic. It's something that's very pertinent for us because we're working on other areas of our character. And I also think it's somewhat hard to diagnose. Because...
No.
Well...
No.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. But the point is that if, let's say, someone else is angry, let's say I get very angry, but I don't show it. Oh, I'm angry inside. I'm angry. I'm boiling over, but I don't display any anger. Just you wouldn't know that I'm angry, right? I'm angry,
But I
right?
know when he's angry. He displays.
But is anger arrogance?
No, not necessarily. That's the same thing. Anger is anger. But anger, if it's not displayed, well, that's a good thing. If someone is able to, to control their rage, that's a very positive thing. That's maybe the first step in eliminating your rage. But if someone in their heart of hearts feels superior to others, but they don't look any different, that's still arrogance. Arrogance is not any outward display. It's about the attitude that you have inside. And if in your heart of hearts you're thinking, I'm better than the guy, and I feel cool and cocky about it, right? That alone is arrogance. You don't have to do any activity of arrogance. Arrogance itself shows that your priorities are messed up.
It may be inside, but it's definitely external as well.
Well,
Definitely
Can be.
shows.
It
I would say
It shows.
80 or 90% it is.
Yeah, but the point is that with other characteristics.
All they have to do is open their mouth.
Yeah, and
if
sometimes
you're
it's also
tuned in or smart enough, you can.
and sometimes it's also like inflection. It's like the way they talk and bravado and whatnot. Yeah, exactly. So it's
Especially in business.
So,
Especially in business.
I would say it's more external than internal.
Yes.
Let me qualify what I said, what I meant. The core characteristic of anger is expression of anger. If someone wakes up in the morning and they're lazy, but they say, I'm getting up anyhow, I'm getting out of bed, and then starting to do my push-ups, right? So even though they feel lazy, but they don't act lazy, in fact, that's a very good thing. right? So what you feel inside doesn't really matter. It's what you do outside. With every other characteristic besides for arrogance. Arrogance is an internal characteristic. That's what I meant. So yes, a lot of people have, it seeps outwardly. But we can say, listen, if someone's a lazy person, right, they don't want to wake up in the morning, they don't want to go this, they don't want to make those phone calls, they don't want to procrastinate, right? They'll push it off, I'd rather sleep, right? Laziness. It's very easy. The solution is very easy. Don't be lazy. Anytime you feel lazy, just do it anyhow. Boom, you're not lazy anymore. It's a very easy solution. There's nothing that you could do to not be arrogant. You have to change internally. The characteristic lies internally. And therefore, the activity that we're going to have to engage to combat it is going to be internal as well.
Well, if you're not self-arrogant, so to speak, the internal, aren't you creating inferiority complex to yourself?
Or self-image. Yeah.
Because if you don't feel good about yourself, in effect, because you're arrogant, I mean, by being arrogant, you're feeling good about yourself. But if you're not, then you're creating...
But isn't
But you're
arrogance
talking
feeling
about
better
confidence.
than...
You're talking about confidence. Confidence and arrogance aren't
Not
exactly
the
the same thing.
Well...
They can be connected, but they aren't
Yeah.
necessarily connected.
You have
You know what I'm
to feel
saying?
better.
I mean, you
Well,
can be
without
confident,
being
not be
arrogant.
arrogant.
You
but
might
if
feel
you're always
think,
saying,
yeah.
well, everybody's better than me because I'm not arrogant, everybody's better than me, then bam, you've got
You're
it.
not good?
Well, it
Well,
doesn't
but do
mean
you
that you're not
believe
good,
it?
though.
Do you believe that everyone
Maybe
is
there's
better
a
than you?
sense
That doesn't
of
mean you're not worth
judgmentalism
anything,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And is being judgmental tantamount to being arrogant?
Okay, so what has become clear is that there has to be some fine line here between someone feeling like they're good for nothing, low self-esteem, low self-confidence, I can't do it, right? And and someone saying, shirking from responsibility as well. Say, I can't accomplish anything, I can't do this, I can't do that. I'll just be a nobody. I'll just not accomplish things in life because that's on one hand very bad. And in fact, the Torah tells us, as we know, there's a statement, a shocking statement, which would seem to be very arrogant, where the Torah tells us that we actually have to say it. And I'll tell you the statement. This is from the Talmud in Sanhedrin. I think it's 36 or 37, A in the bottom, the Mishnah. And it says, Chayav Adam Lomar Bishvili Nivra Ha'olam. Translate that into English. Chayav Adam Lomar. A person is obligated to say, Bishvili Nivra Ha'olam. The world was created for me. Now tell me, if you met someone who said, the world...
We have.
The world's my oyster.
You said. I love
Right?
it.
That sounds very arrogant.
Yeah, for sure.
It's,
Right.
but what I hear from you and you, it's fine to say I'm fine. The difference is comparison. You're arrogant when you say I'm better than, is what I'm hearing.
Right.
Rather than saying
Okay, but
I'm capable, the world was created for me, God thinks I'm a special because I am in God's image,
Yes.
and that's good.
okay, but what about this
You
statement?
You are, but I don't have to compare.
Now listen to this one. You ready? I'm sure as a Musar class, I'm sure you heard the name Rabbi Israel Salanter, who's very famous because he kind of brought the modern Musar movement. He was the one who's the founder, so to speak. And he said, this is documented, quote, I have the mind of 1,000 men, end quote. What he's saying is there's the intelligence of a man, multiply that by 1,000, that's my intelligence. Now tell me, does that sound arrogant? According to the classification we got from Barbara, that would seem like it's very arrogant.
But
Right?
what was the context within which he said
Well,
it?
that much I don't know. But clearly, if it's just about comparison, well then Rabbi Salanter, who is the founder of our movement, should be the most arrogant person. Well, think about that. State, not 100 men. 100 1,000 men. And when we know the man was a genius, the genius of geniuses. But I think that we could still find a way to view him as not being arrogant.
Yeah.
So I don't think.
I can see how.
Because you could
I
think
can see how.
there are other men who have 2,000.
No.
Even
Well,
smarter than he is.
2,000.
He's not making it. He's not comparing, is it? Is he really
He's
comparing?
saying, yeah, look, I have the mind of 1,000 men, which means that there's a certain modicum of intelligence, which is the average man. Let's roll that, whatever that may be.
Okay.
I have the mind of 1,000 of them. So, do you have a task maybe that 1,000 men would need to accomplish? I could do it on my own with his intelligence.
I don't see it that way.
Or whatever it means, either way, he is clearly pointing or mentioning or bringing up or observing to the enormous intelligence that he has compared to others.
You
And-
don't see that
I
as
don't see
arrogant?
that.
Of course it is. That
I
statement
don't
is
see
arrogant
that.
on its
I
face.
don't see
Why?
that.
Well,
Because he could mean I am the result of 1,000 teachers during my lifetime.
That's why I said, what was the
Exactly.
context within which he said it?
Exactly.
Because you don't know what surrounded that. It might not have been a statement of arrogance as
It's
it
not
sounds.
my own mind.
Okay,
it's
so
the mind of
Can I
many
give you another
people
example?
influencing my mind.
when I say, I thank God for making me a man and not a
Oh,
woman.
you can forget that.
Thank you for not making me a woman. Is that arrogance?
Well,
Hey,
yeah, but I'm saying I think that's the best example that we could get.
That's
where
a good example.
I'm
Of
saying
what?
of what of no.
Don't you almost believe it?
No, Rabbi Salanter,
Oh.
saying that that to us, and I think I want to explain what the Talmud says about arrogance.
Okay.
This Talmud is very interesting. Talmud tells us that arrogance equals idolatry. We typically think of arrogance in the realm of interpersonal relationships. The Talmud is telling us it has nothing to do with the way you interact with other people. It has to do with your relationship with God. And I think perhaps the balance is that a person has to know his qualities. A person has to be aware of what gifts he got from God. When I say he, I mean he or she. That a person must know. And in fact, if a person does not know that and recognize that, what they in essence are doing, it's like when someone gives you a gift, right? And you don't even open up the gift. You don't even say, wow, thank you for giving me this toy or this whatever. Right? If you don't recognize the gift, that's a slap in the face of God. God's giving you gifts, whatever skills you may have. It may be your intelligence, maybe your wonderful looks, or your wonderful success, or your wonderful personality. Those are gifts you got from God. And you have to know that, because otherwise you're rejecting his gifts. He gave you a gift because he loves you. Be aware of it. Be cognizant of it and thank him about it. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about. But you have to remember that it's God's gift that he gave to you. Yes, I may be more intelligent than someone else, but does that make me better than them? No, because that was a gift that I got from the Almighty. You can never be arrogant with a gift that you got from someone else. Arrogance is only when you credit your successes or your intelligence to your own. You say, look at me, I'm so intelligent. But if you say, yes, I'm so intelligent, but that's that's the gift the Almighty gave me. I'm no better than you. The Almighty gave you your intelligence. It was just gifts that the Almighty gave. I'm no better than you. So, in a sense, it's what you're saying, but it's even on a finer line. It's not that you don't think that you're. It isn't either. You don't think you're better than someone else. It doesn't mean you could be recognized that you have a greater gift than someone else, but that doesn't necessarily translate. Doesn't have to translate into you feeling superior over them. I could know that yes, I have a mind of 1,000 men, but I'm no better than someone else. Because that's the gift that I got, and that's the gift that he or she got.
Now, wait a minute. Wait.
And what's wrong with that?
Someone else might be a
What
great
if you
artist.
say, I am the best basketball. I'm better than 1,000 basketball. I'm the best.
Yeah,
That may-
that's-
that-
That's a talent.
And you could say that
But it has to
as
be
arrogance.
so.
But
Well, it could be so. That isn't that
The
arrogant?
problem is that if it's not so, and you keep saying
LeBron
it,
says, "I am
and
the
believe
best.
it.
I am better than 1,000 basketball players."
and he and
Like
no,
I
I
said,
think
it's not
I think that's. I
But that's
think-
arrogant.
no, it's not
If
arrogant.
somebody says that about him, it's not arrogant. But if he comes out to himself, it comes out and says, "I'm the best. I am the best basketball player in the world."
No, not the best, I'm better than 1,000.
No.
He is the best.
Yes, no, but I don't think that. I think you should still be humble, even though you know that you're the best at
If
something.
you come out and say it, you can still be humble about
Well,
that?
then we might call into
I'm
question.
humble that I'm the best in the world.
We might call into question his motives by that. But the point of someone knowing, remember, as we mentioned at the beginning, arrogance is not really about what someone says or what someone acts. It's about what someone really feels like on the inside. Right? That's just a minute. Question is, let's say you know that you're the best player in the world. You know that.
Okay.
So you may say it or not, irrespective of that. Arrogance is what's in your heart. You know you're the best. Okay,
So is that
but
arrogant?
now you
If
feel.
whether you open your mouth or not, and you think you're,
That
we
is
can
arrogant.
acknowledge
On
our
its-
good
on its
traits.
face, it's
Forget
Why is
the
that?
negative ones.
Why is
Our
that?
good ones.
Why
Are we
is
being
that?
arrogant when we acknowledge?
No,
our-
absolutely not.
I'm a really good person.
The question is do you say, I have X, now I'm better than someone else? The question is if you make that little leap of taking your gift that you got from God and translating that to a feeling of superiority over someone else who did not get that gift.
Like you said, the comparison.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, again, if you say I'm the best, by its very nature, you're comparing yourself
Yes,
to
it's
everyone
arrogance.
else.
Yes.
No.
I mean, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
No.
No, I beg to differ because, I mean, seriously, if I say
How
I'm
do
the
you-
best, that means therefore everyone else is less than me.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Okay.
How can you be the best? How could you?
Yeah,
how
I-
could you even come to? No. How do you come to that statement without looking at others?
Exactly.
Yes, yes, you're right, Millie.
Okay, I think it's a very delicate line. I want to try to explain it one more time. It's a very delicate line.
Well, first of all, if you say you are the best, forgive me, but I think you're arrogant. If you voice it out, you are putting everyone else in a situation of being uncomfortable that, oh, you're saying you're the best. I mean, really,
Let me tell you,
you know,
now. I mean, that's the first thing I would say. I have news for you. You're not.
exactly.
But I'm
right.
interrupting. But the thing that goes through my mind is like being 6'6" and saying I'm the tallest. Well, good for you. You are the tallest. What does that do for me?
It's
not
really, as the
Exactly.
rabbi said to begin
Yeah.
with, it's how you then internalize it. So take what Dave said about
Right.
LeBron. I could see the guy talking to his managers and just saying, no, I'm really worth $50 million because I'm really the best.
Right.
But
Yeah.
he doesn't mean that in an arrogant way.
No.
It's now he's talking, but again, it's all up here, I think is what you're saying, how you then...
You could still be very
Well,
humble.
it has to
Yes.
do
You
with
could still be very humble. That's
Yeah.
my point. Why can't you still be humble? I know that I have a certain gift. And I'm very thankful for it. And I'm very happy for it. But I don't feel that someone else who does not have that gift, I'm better than them.
You're not superior.
Means I may be
If
better...
you put it on the table,
Yeah.
any way you put it, that don't sound so good,
No,
right?
absolutely
It gives everyone else
not.
an inferiority
That's right. When you
complex.
start voicing, you know,
No,
and,
even
and
if you're
basi-
doing it for the right reason, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I agree.
Someone else says
So
it
the
about
lesson
you,
is you
that's
just
fine.
don't say you're
You
the
just
best
can't
thing.
say
You
it.
don't
Yeah.
brag about
No,
yourself.
Someone
that's-
else is
that's
saying
what I'm
it.
saying.
If someone
Well,
else is
I'm
saying
amazed that a Musar master, a Salanter, would say that.
Yeah, but
That's
because...
the most arrogant statement.
No, but it's
I'm
not
smarter than
arrogance.
1,000 men.
It's not arrogance. It's not arrogance.
It's like
I
God.
We're-
don't
we're
say
told
that.
that- think about it this way.
People that have gifts from God go around saying,
That's right.
I'm wonderful, you know, I'm the
Because-
kindest.
I'm the
you know.
prettiest person
I
in
mean,
the world.
yeah, exactly. I'm the most
I'm the
beautiful.
tallest.
You know, I'm the, yeah,
That's
whatever.
honest,
I just
like,
don't
really.
find that a person would be really humble to say that. That to me just smacks of
Of
arrogance.
arrogance.
You're using a different
Opposite of
characteristic.
Yes.
Humility is different than arrogance, I think. I may be.
Well, they're opposites.
They're polar opposites.
No, but you can be, you're making a statement of fact. Using the best, the
making-
biggest may give you a
You know-
connotation that's not, that
Sorry,
degrades
I'm
you.
comparing.
But saying that's my gift. I'm a very good basketball player.
That's different.
I'm a great artist. I go to an art museum and I go, they're putting this piece of black as art, but whatever people think that's great art.
But he's not saying, but wait a minute, Barbara, he's not saying I'm the best artist by putting a picture up there. There's a big difference.
But there
But they
are.
think
That's
they are.
what
That's
they
kind
are.
of an opinion. He's stating a fact almost, right?
No.
He's actually saying,
He's
I'm
saying,
smarter than 1,000 times.
He doesn't say that.
That's,
Like, he
1,000
did
what
not
man?
say that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not
He said
smarter
he
than
has
1,000
the mind
Einsteins.
of-
What
Can you
man is
repeat-
the average man? What's an average man?
Can you repeat the quote exactly again, please?
Now,
He doesn't
I'm
say
sure,
that.
I'm sure the quote was probably either in German or in Yiddish or some other language.
Do it in any language.
But the way I heard it, okay, and I didn't hear from him because he died in 1883. But I heard it in English, and that would be, I have the mind of 1,000 men.
I mean, look at the idea of the
doesn't
Lamed
say that
Bavnis.
he's
We
better.
don't even know who they are.
Okay.
They don't brag about themselves. I'm sure the legend
It's not-
is that the Lamed Bavniks don't brag and go, I'm a Lamed Bavnik.
I think we have to explain. It's probably not that he walked into a town square and took a bullhorn and said, I have the mind of 1,000 men. It's just, he might have said it in conversation because he understood the enormity of the responsibility that the Almighty gave him.
Yes.
And he took a leadership role as a result. And he realized that the Almighty expects him to accomplish more than 1,000. And you know what? If you look at his accomplishments, he did a lot more than 1,000 men. But I think someone could still have the gravity of the realization of what the Almighty expects from him as a result of the tools the Almighty gives him.
But do you think they voice it? I mean, that's I guess my
So
question. Do you
yeah,
think
so
they
for
do
us,
voice it?
it's hard to imagine someone saying, "Oh, I'm a this that," without them trying to make the impression that they feel better than other people. But imagine if he just felt this in his heart, for example. Yeah, and to him, and he says, "Listen, I know this is what I have," and knowing that's not arrogance. If you know if you happen to be the best ball player in the world, and you know that's not arrogance. That's just a fact. There's some people are delusional, and they think that they are what they're not. That's the worst. But arrogance could even mean when someone actually knows what they are, and it's not a misrepresentation of the facts. But the question is, what are you going to do with that? You could know that you're gifted in whatever area, and that could bring you towards humility, because you realize what it is that you need to accomplish to justify those gifts.
I was just going to add to that too, though. How about also making sure that you recognize what other people's talents and qualities are? That keeps you humble.
And that's indeed
You're
that's a
great
method.
artist and you're this and you're that, right?
That's a method. That's
Yeah.
one of the methods that we use. The
We
Talmud
don't say
says,
we're smarter, and we don't say we're better. We might say we have a gift.
Well, I think that's.
But
what
once
it
you
means.
utter I'm better and smarter, then you are showing
the
arrogance.
Talmud tells of a dialogue that I think a parent had with his child, and the father tells him, he says, "Listen, if you're more intelligent, if someone else is more intelligent than you, or wealthier than you, or bigger Torah scholar than you, then how could you feel arrogant? They're better than you in whatever area. And let's say you're more intelligent, or you're a bigger Torah scholar, you're wealthier. Well, then you have to think that all your activities are judged on a much higher level, on a much more, they're scrutinized more heavily. You say, listen, hey, I have the mind of 1,000 men, but now if I sin, that's much worse than some dude who sins, because more is expected of me. So I'm probably a bigger sinner than he is. The point being is that we don't necessarily take our gifts and translate that into being better as a human. I may have a greater brain, a more capacity for calculation. Doesn't mean I'm a better person. Doesn't mean the Almighty loves me more. Doesn't mean I have any more value than you. And yes, it's very important for us to be aware of our qualities. If someone doesn't know that they have if someone has a mind of 1,000 men and doesn't know that, that's way worse than being arrogant. Because if someone is arrogant, well, they could fix that. If someone does not know their qualities, they don't even know what tools they have to work with. So I think that if we're going to actually build the progression, first you have to make sure that you know everything that you do have. Because that's the gifts the Almighty gave you. And He gave them to you for a reason. And that reason is to use them. We all have a tool belt. And those tools are what we're going to use to accomplish what it is to be accomplished in life. And if you don't know that, well, you don't even have where to start. So you better know that you have the mind of 1,000 men if that's indeed what you have. That being said, the next step would be the recognition that this comes from God. It's like, how could you feel better than... You know what it's like driving around, when your rich uncle comes with his Mercedes. So you say, can I take it for a drive? And you go around the neighborhood like this, right? And you're like, right? But it's silly to feel arrogant. It's not yours. Someone gave it to you, right? You realize that what you have is a gift from God. You won't feel arrogant. You don't feel superior. You know that you have it, but it's a gift. No one walks around. Well, not no one. Most people don't walk around and say, "Look at me. I could digest." Even though digestion, if you were to isolate digestion and say, it's a pretty remarkable, rough, but it's a pretty remarkable skill. It's a remarkable skill. Think about that. I'm able to process foods, break them down, separate all the positive things and remove all the other things, and it's an amazing skill that I have. How come people don't walk around saying, "Look at me, I can digest"? No one puts that as their Facebook site. Well, maybe some people do. No one puts that as their accomplishments. Grade A digester. Why don't people write that? Look what a skill it is. It's much greater skill than dunking a basketball. A much greater skill. The reason is because we realize that that's from God. We did nothing to accomplish that. It's someone else's Lexus. It's a skill that we got. We're lucky. We should be grateful that we can digest. Doesn't mean, and we should be aware of that. Let's say it's a gift from God. You better be aware of it. We have a prayer after every time you use the restroom. The Judaism is a prayer to be thankful. Right? You realize that this is wonderful, but you also realize that you got it from God. And once you have that realization, there's no arrogance. There's no superiority. How could you feel superior? It's silly to feel superior when you're playing with someone else's money.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
What about religion? You see, you're a Jew, and you're very happy with that fact that you are, and you love Judaism. But 98% of the world is not.
99.8.
Sorry. So you see all these Christians or Muslims, do you ever compare or look at them and think what kind of life they go through and what they believe in? And do you ever feel superior?
Okay, so you want to know? You asking me specifically, or
all of us?
All of us. We love feel that we're better. I don't know if we can even feel that we're better.
Smarter.
We're grateful. Well, that might be a reality. I'm saying that might be data. That might be data, and that's fine if it's data. Yes, it is. But I think that we can feel grateful, be very happy. I'm proud to be Jewish. I'm proud to be American. Think about that. People say.
One of the other blessings.
Yes, the fact that did you decide to which family you were going to be born into? Did you make a decision to do that? Well, then you can't take any pride in the fact that you can't feel you're superior to someone else because you were born in Texas as opposed to Nicaragua, right? You can be very happy about it. You can be grateful about it. You can know about that, but you can't feel like you're superior. So I think the same thing. What did we do to be born Jewish? Nothing. We might make that decision. Maybe we can't. I don't know. Maybe we could we?
But unfortunately, there are people in religions who do feel that superiority, don't they?
Oh,
Yeah.
That's sort of
Well,
what
we
you're
might
getting
feel
at.
like we have.
I do in a way.
I mean, talking about
I do.
But then
non-Jewish.
again, I'm uncomfortable.
No, we do have a superior religion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no question.
That's not a question.
No.
And
Well,
we're right, they're
It
wrong.
is to others.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Well, we don't say it that way.
Well,
superior religion, but
Why not?
well, not to the rest of the world. We don't say that.
No, I'm saying it's. But you know what? The Japanese have their flag is a huge sun, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all the way in the east. Sun comes to us first. You know, everyone feels like they're superior, right? You watch the World Cup and everyone's with their flag. Everyone feels superior. We happen to be right. That's the difference.
Correct. And let's not forget that.
The what?
Let's not forget that.
The what?
That we are right.
Yeah.
So, Rabbi, don't you feel all racism, all racism and all anti-Semitism, that all stems from arrogance? Every bit of it stems from arrogance.
Well, anti-Semitism is a very unique phenomenon.
But it's still a part,
It's unique because
if
you
you
can't.
feel better, if you feel superior or better than any other race, religion, or creed, you're arrogant.
That's a good argument. I don't know. I'm not.
What?
It's 100% of the world,
It
quite
is.
frankly.
Yeah. It is.
What? It feels
So
good.
everybody's got that little tinge of arrogance.
All you have
Yeah.
to do is look around. Look at all the wars. Look
Of
at all the
course,
conflicts.
what
Look
is-
at all the neighbors
That's
fighting with
exactly
each
what
other.
it is.
Yeah.
It's all
I-
arrogance.
Yeah, I agree.
Better than you, and I'm
And
right. And
no. But I think those two statements aren't necessarily the same. You could say, listen, I'm right because we happen to be right. That's
Well,
the data.
my
That's
way-
the evidence,
my way is
right?
That's
I'm not necessarily better than you. Well, I was born into the family, or I joined the family, whatever. But you could join if you want as well. Means I still think that we can have this fine line between saying, listen, the reality is that I have a mind of 1,000 men. I'm the best basketball player. I'm part of a religion that happens to be right. Right? Does that necessarily translate into me being better than you? Maybe that's arrogance. That's where arrogance is. I'm very thankful, I'm very happy, I take pleasure in the fact that I could digest. I don't say I'm better than someone else. Look at me, look what I have, right? I don't use that to feel superior to someone else. Take pleasure, don't take pride.
Some of these statements are more subjective than others. For example, your statement about the basketball player, something that can be measured, more or less. How many, whatever you did or
you
whatever.
can measure that.
These other statements seem to me to be, you really can't measure 1,000, whatever. I understand, you take an average, whatever, take an average brain. And again, many of these statements are very subjective. So they can't be quantified. You cannot say, this is right. You can't, you can't do it. It's difficult to do.
Well, it's difficult. Doesn't mean that you can't do them. But we have a lot of models that we use to have. I think in today's society there is this idea that everyone's right and everyone has their right to what's called and every kid wins. Right? There's no competition. Yeah. So that but I think that's the trend. Everyone wants to politically correct. But I do believe, I think with measuring intelligence, we have very accurate models of measuring intelligence. We have a system that, like the college admission system, which is basically a way to, for the more intelligent students to have a better shot at the better schools, typically, right? So we do have some methodology that we could use, and people we know, that, well, I'm sorry?
When the Rabbi Salanter made this statement, though, I'm kind of
I'd like to know what the context was.
yeah, but
Either way,
right.
I think the context isn't the point. The point is that he knew it. And knowing that is nothing wrong. And in fact, if you don't know it, that's when something is wrong.
But saying it.
Knowing it and saying it.
So we don't know what the context is. We don't know what the context
So
is.
once you say it, I
That's
think
right.
for us,
I agree.
100 years later, the context.
But I don't know what's the difference with whether or not you say it. Provided that you know If someone happens to know that they're greatly skilled in a certain area, what's wrong with saying it? You're not saying it in the context of necessarily showing your superiority. You could say it. It's a gift the Almighty gave you. Why would you not want to tell other people about it? Well,
First of all, they ought to be able to tell.
Yeah.
You know, when you when you say something, I can't stand someone trying to tell me who they are, because I can pretty well tell you who you are by being around you.
But
When
that's
they try,
arrogant.
when they
By
try,
them telling you.
I'm telling
That
you,
makes it
they
arrogant.
try to tell you. I had a principal in my children's school telling me how great the school was, how every teacher was incredible, and I'm going, come on. I mean, we've been here a while. I know not every teacher is created equal here, and to sit there and put this up to this level, it really is demeaning to a person listening to it in a way. When someone has to convince me or tell me that they're that wonderful, I automatically go, I'm not sure I want to be around that. I don't care how wonderful you are. So I'm just trying to say to you that when someone comes out with such a statement like that, you get to a level, I think, of self-actualization where you are very calm and don't have to let it out that you are the best or the greatest at whatever. You know that, and you've taken the responsibility on of leadership, everything that comes with that trait, whatever it is, everything that comes with that gift that God gave you. And I don't think you verbalize it, because I think once you verbalize it, people look at you.
I think
no
there's
way,
a danger when you verbalize it. There's a danger of you taking that as a sign of your superiority. But remember, the real problem with arrogance is not that other people won't like you. That's indeed one of the reasons. The problem is that you're showing that you don't believe in God. It's a repudiation of faith. That's the real problem. When someone has arrogance, they're rejecting God. Because they're in essence saying, God didn't give it to me, I got it myself. Hence, I have the license to feel better than someone else.
I understand that, but I think, and I understand what you're saying. I'm just stating that when someone says it and verbalizes it, it comes into question in my mind greatly whether they're arrogant or not. And in general, I would say, I'm looking at them going, I don't need to be told. You really don't need a statement like that. Just basically, we're all human beings. We all analyze. And when you're told what to think, it calls into question a lot of things about that person's character that is speaking. And that's what I mean by it. I mean, yes, if the person said, God gave me this wonderful gift, and I am the greatest piano player right now.
And I'm so grateful for that.
I'm so grateful. I
That's
would think
different.
differently.
That's different.
I would think differently.
It's different. That
But
is.
than someone saying, I am the greatest.
Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the
You
greatest
know,
of all
greatest.
time.
Exactly.
I am
I'm
the
the
greatest.
greatest of all time. And that is a different
There's
way.
a big difference, isn't
Very
it?
big. When you say and you acknowledge verbally that you are humble because you didn't have anything to do with this. I think in a very different way about that person versus someone that comes out with a statement, a blanket statement that they're, the best school with the best teachers. And, I want to go, lady, come on. My kids have had teachers here. They're not the best. I mean, some of them are, some of them aren't.
But I think that your point that you're bringing up is that if someone, let's say, is the greatest, let's assume someone is the greatest, or someone is very skilled in whatever area, they are very susceptible to arrogance.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, they are.
and therefore they have to be particularly watchful, vigilant,
Careful.
to make sure that they're not going to fall into that trap.
Yes, that's right.
So, indeed, let's assume the school was the best school.
You wouldn't say that.
They're saying
It
the
was
school-
whether or not you say it or not.
Thinking it's like
It's a
being a
sales
You know, some-
salesperson.
you know,
I'm selling
some-
to you.
But I also think there's also the danger of someone saying, I'm the greatest, in his heart. He's saying, I'm the greatest, and I'm even humble because I'm not telling the world about it. That's even worse because they're arrogant. They're arrogant, and they think that they're not. I think if someone has just a contrarian opinion here, perhaps if someone has the ability, chutzpah, to say, I have the mind of 1,000 men, it's for us, we view it as arrogant because for us, we don't understand the magnitude of the responsibility of making sure that you don't have one shred of arrogance. We're told, just as an example, we're told that Moses, Moses, on one hand, is someone who had the most reason to be arrogant. Think about it. He was the one who brought the Torah to this world. He took the Jews out of Egypt. And the Torah testifies about him that he was the least arrogant person, the most humble person possible. And the connection between someone's greatness and someone's humility is clearly emphasized. Moshe was the greatest, and he had the most humility. So I think specific, and we know we're talking about the king, for example. There's several mitzvahs that are applicable only to a Jewish king. And all the mitzvahs are that ways to curb his potential for arrogance. For example, he has to write 2 Torah scrolls and keep one with him at all times, even when he's out and traveling and about, and one in his palace. And the Torah says he has to have that, so he shouldn't become arrogant. The king is more potential for arrogance, therefore he has to be more vigilant to protect that. But I think if we can imagine a world where someone is so acutely aware, and it's part of their bones, the necessity for humility, I think that if someone is able to say, I have the mind of 1,000 men, it's a greater demonstration to their humility. Because otherwise, I said contrarian opinion, right?
Yeah.
Well,
That's okay.
you're allowed to have your opinion.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine.
We might have
In a
other
world-
opinions, but you're allowed
I
to have your
can't quite make that.
I can't
Well,
make
he has
that.
to
I
make the
can't make the
connection.
connection.
Yeah, he has to make the
I-
connection.
I can make the connection.
You could?
It's
Okay, tell
it's
everyone.
not easy to
They're
say.
attacking me.
I don't know if I can put it in words, but he is not saying, I am the smartest of 1,000 men. He's saying, I have the mind of 1,000 men, and that can mean
You're right.
volumes.
Yeah. Well, it can mean
It can
something
mean
else.
I am the product of 1,000 people in my life who have taught me to have this mind. And we are, all of us are.
Ava, you're not making a leap here?
No, no, I'm not.
Well,
I'm not.
You can
I'm
interpret
not.
that any way you want, I guess, by
But
somebody
that's
saying
how
it.
I see it.
Okay.
That's
I have something else I want to introduce here. Okay, listen to this. Okay. We're told by the Torah with finality that Moses was the most humble man to ever walk the planet. That's what we're told. And we accept that on face value. In the Midrash, we have a dialogue between Moses and the angels sent to kill him. And it's a remarkable dialogue. I don't know if there's a Midrash here. It's the very, very last Midrash in Midrash Rabbah. It's one of the biggest. Midrash is a collection of statements of Mishnaic and Talmudic era statements on the Torah, and additionally on the Jewish Bible. And it contains teachings and parts of the oral tradition with regards to the narrative and the laws of the Torah. The Midrash is giving us, so all the way at the end of the Torah, the very last thing that happens in the Torah is that Moses dies. And therefore, at that corresponding part of the Midrash, we have the insight as to what happened when Moses died. So what happens is that God sends certain angels and says, I want the neshama, I want the soul of Moses. As we know, death by definition is taking the soul and leaving the body, right? After someone dies, their body is still around, it's dead because the soul is gone. The soul is what gives the body vitality. So the angel goes to Moses, and Moses says, what are you doing here? Obviously, if Moses could talk to God, he could certainly talk to angels. And he says, what do you mean I can't take your soul? He says, get out of here. He says, what do you mean, get out of here? What do you mean, get out of here? So God sent me to get your soul. He says, to get my soul, you are going to take my soul. You know who I am? You know what I accomplished? Do you know that I brought 10 plagues unto Pharaoh in Egypt? Do you know that I brought the Torah? I went 40 days and 40 nights without eating or drinking. And he starts listing his accomplishments. And you read that and say, wait a minute. Slow down. The Torah clearly says Moses was the most humble man that ever lived. And here we have him saying in a certain context to an angel all these things. And he's talking about, I taught Torah and I carried the nation. I was the greatest leader. I don't remember exactly what it says. I don't have the text in front of me. I can get the text if someone's interested in that. Clearly, saying that you are X, if that is true, is not arrogance. Because otherwise, the Torah and the Midrash are incompatible. The Midrash clearly knew what the Torah said about him, and the Torah clearly knew about this dialogue. So the fact that the Torah is able to say with absolute, with no doubt, with no hesitation, Moses was greatest, was not the greatest, but greatest as well, but the most humble man that ever lived. And we know that Moses knew about his accomplishments, and in a certain context even mentioned it. That's not arrogance.
That's his curriculum.
It's his resume.
Yeah.
It's a reality. It's a fact. It's a fact. And Moses still knew that this was from God, and still didn't feel superior to even the schleppiest guy in the street. The shlemiel and shlemazels, as they say in Yiddish. A shlemiel, some dude. Moses didn't feel one iota better than him.
Why
In
would
fact,
Moses not
Moses...
want his soul going to Hashem?
What?
Why would Moses not want his soul going to Hashem?
That's a good question. That's a very different topic. But the answer is because Jews hate dying, because once you're dead, you can no longer accomplish anything.
Okay.
You can't do any mitzvahs. Can't. Right? Your time, your opportunity is gone.
But if he knew, but when he dies, he would be happy probably that his soul go to Hashem.
Perhaps. Still, he wants to grab as many mitzvahs as possible.
Okay, that's a good answer.
It's like, it's like filling up your bags with gold. Like, why would you? Yes, of course, you'll be able to enjoy the gold afterwards, and now it's hard work schlepping, but you don't want to leave. Right? You want to be able to fill up even more, right?
Okay.
So that's my argument. My argument is that Moses treaded the line very, very well. Moses was the most humble person that ever lived. Yet Moses, under certain circumstances, attested to his wonderful accomplishments, and still he didn't feel superior to the Shlemiel and Shlemazel, the Jewish people. And he felt that they could have done whatever he did, given if they had the same circumstances. And I had gifts, I had a mission, I accomplished a mission. Perhaps they accomplished our mission as well. I'm no better than them. And you know what? If I did accomplish my mission and they didn't accomplish it, I'm still no better than them, because now every sin that I do is magnified. And we know that Moses' sins are always magnified. Every time Moses does something, like he does any little thing wrong, it's automatically plastered. If you read the Torah, if you just given a book, you said, here, read this book, a very popular book, and you read it and you say, who's the villain? You'll say Moses. Look at the book. Moses is berated more than everyone else combined. How many times does God say, Moses, what are you doing? God got angry at Moses. Right? Clearly, but Moses is still the greatest person ever lived. This book is so crazy. How do these things work out? The point is that Moses, at a higher level, is judged as well as at a higher level. So therefore, to Moses, he's thinking, I'm not better than someone else. Why? My sins are much worse than his sins. That person could sin his whole life, and I make one slight mistake, and I'm worse off. Because more is expected of me. Because I was given greater gifts by God. So, and I think that's really the balance that we have to strike. And yes, it is somewhat of a hard thing, because the second we say I'm the greatest, we start thinking, I'm the greatest, and you're not the greatest, I'm better than you, right? We make that leap. And for us, sometimes it's hard to wrap our head around the fact that these are separate things. Right? We have to disconnect the gifts that we have and the feelings that we have of superiority or of identity vis-a-vis other people. And I think that maybe the first way to start, Susan mentioned one idea, that was, we have to realize that we also have shortcomings. And we just look at our own gifts and other people's shortcomings. That's what we tend to do. We don't dwell on our own shortcomings.
Oh, yes, we do.
Well, that's the other problem, that we give, then we lose our self-esteem.
Yeah.
But we're quick to judge other people, and we judge ourselves perhaps by our intentions and other people by their results. Then we say, I screwed up, but I kind of meant good. But when someone else screws up, we say, dude, they screwed up. What are you thinking? But perhaps I think that the way for us to develop a sensitivity towards this is to not view ourselves and view other people, or view ourselves and other people by comparison. I was given a certain mission in this world. I was given tools for that mission. I hope to God that I'm able to succeed in the mission. I hope I have the wherewithal and the fortitude and the skills and the know-how and the ability to actually be successful. I'm very thankful for my own gifts. I'm very happy. I don't want anyone else's gifts, and I'm very happy that the Almighty gives me challenges, because challenges are opportunities to grow. And I'm my own individual person. And perhaps what we mentioned at the beginning, everyone has to say the world was created for me. Right? Remember we mentioned at the beginning. Perhaps the idea is that, yes, I have to judge myself as an individual. The entire world was just for me. Not that it wasn't necessarily for someone else, but the point is that the way I value myself is as if I was the only person in the world. Not in reference to other people. Because the second I do that, I run the risk of feeling superior as a result of my gifts, and not taking pleasure and taking responsibility as well for my gifts. I have to say, listen, I was granted by God a certain modicum of intelligence or whatever. I have to use that for mitzvah. It's an obligation. Try to take our gifts and try to not translate that as to who I am and my identity compared to other people, but rather as an obligation. I was granted with certain, I'm a mind of 1,000 men, I have the obligation of 1,000 men. And I have the responsibility of 1,000 men. And I'm judged 1,000 times more critically. That should be the inference. And I think probably Moses knew Moses knew that he spoke to God. He knew that other people didn't speak to God. He knew that. He was well aware of who he was and his state. He didn't translate that into feeling superior. And I think when we engage in our efforts, Musar efforts, in whatever area of Musar that we're working on, we have to realize that we have opportunities. We're gifted with the environment and the classes and the initiative to change ourselves. But we run the risk. We face the danger of taking that and translating that to arrogance. And I think with every step that we take in success, in tackling whatever characteristic we are working on, we have to take a corresponding step in making sure that our arrogance doesn't get out of hand. By saying, yes, I am working on my laziness, but this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm doing my responsibility. This is my digestion. I don't feel. I'm very happy about it. I don't feel like I'm superior. Who knows what other area of character I'm myself lacking? What area that other person has over me? I may be indeed working on a certain characteristic, and I'm very happy about that. I take tremendous pleasure in that. Take pleasure, not pride. Right? Don't feel superior as a result. So I think that's the balance. And, it's not easy for us to think about someone saying, I have the mind of 1,000 men, and not translating that into arrogance. But I think that the process that we have to engage in, the internal process, is one of saying, yes, everyone has something that they're special in. They don't necessarily need to take that and take that as a license to feel superior. And like we mentioned, arrogance is rejection of God because we don't realize how God enabled us to accomplish what we accomplished, what God gave us. We're working with borrowed money. It's borrowed money. We're driving the Almighty's Cadillac. That's the idea. What does everyone say here?
What do we say?
Yeah.
Good class.
Okay.
Very, very good.
You guys want me back?
Makes perfect sense.
You want me back, or would you rather have my brother back? He'll be back here next week.
Actually, that's a loaded question.
We like both of you.
We like
Okay.
you both
Say you're
spin it a
better?
little different. You teach in different styles.
We like both of you.
Very
Yeah?
strong. You're very strong.
Yes.
Yeah?
I like that.
You like
The
it?
delivery, yes.
Oh, thank you.
Rabbi, so a rabbi that, if you're more learned and you know Torah,